Lacrosse is a sport that was started before the United States was even a thing. But we're not here to talk about the past. We're here to talk about the future because here at Stringking, we believe that the Mark III-V is the future of lacrosse. I know I said we were going to talk about the future, but a little backstory before Stringking was established in 2011, back in the great state of Massachusetts. We obviously started as a lacrosse centric company. We still pride ourselves in being a lacrosse centric company. But now we have begun to create gear for some of our directly competing sports, baseball, softball, and hockey. But the main focus today, obviously, is the Mark III-V, which is our newest designed head, which we believe to be a revolutionary design, because it's the first positionless head, meaning that we don't differentiate between offense and defense. And we also believe it to be accessible and perfect for all skill levels, which we'll touch on more. First, let's talk about value. As I previously mentioned, the growth of the game. According to the World Lacrosse Federation, we have 93 members and nations competing in World Games, which is phenomenal. But here in the United States, it's obviously one of the fastest growing sports in the country. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, I was very fortunate that I grew up in a nice developed pocket of lacrosse awareness, if you will, because not a lot of areas in Columbus had that. And now growing up and playing in high school, obviously, and going back now and seeing my little brothers play, it's really cool to see how much the game has grown. And now that I live in Arizona, I really hope that I can bring that growth to my new state as well. But as I previously mentioned, it's not limited to one position. It's the first ever positionless head, um, focusing specifically on midfielders, because midfielders obviously play offense and defense. But as any lacrosse player knows, there's a defensive aspect of playing offense as well as there's an offensive aspect to playing defense. So here at String King, we really didn't think it was um, all that needed to really differentiate between offense and defense. But it's also great for all skill levels too, because I know when people hear universal and kind of generic words that encapsulate large groups of people into one net group, the advanced players are like, "Oh, I'm too good for that. I don't need that." We believe that the Mark III-V is perfect to elevate beginners, because it's that perfect blend of offense and defense. It really allows beginners to have a strong outlet and a really strong starter stick, but it also really goes with advanced players, and it goes with all skill levels. Similar, and there's nothing more valuable than the actual price tag on our product, which we value at $120, which is very consistent with what we see in the market today. Pain points, obviously, are going to be what I believe are the most important aspects of our product, which is that it is too broad. It's not specific enough. There's never been a positionless head. It's stupid that it's not an offensive head or it's not a defensive head. Well, I think that's exactly why the Mark III-V is so unique, and can really captivate an entire new audience. Um, Another pain point could be that there's still a very small fraction, but definitely a fraction of players that play goalie or are face-off specialists that can't use this head. For those that don't know, the face-off is where two players meet in the middle and kind of fight over the ball. They need very specific, flexible heads so that they can dig the ball out from the ground. Um, Another pain point is that it's new. People are scared of change. It might not be very well perceived. Um, Again, I believe the solution is focus on being that trailblazer, that new um, kind of product in the market. Being the only universal head creates demand for the product. Um, and the digitally evolved audience demands authenticity. There's nothing more authentic than creating a first of a kind product. And I believe that that is truly what our customers will see. And I even included the bone colorway specifically, not only because I like it over here on the right, but um, it's a very unique color. And String King, I believe, was the first company to introduce a bone or a cream kind of color. So just another little unique thing about us. So the concept, starting with our product message, is that the Mark III V is the first ever field player stick, meaning it's not specifically catered to offense or defense. Because with a perfect plastic combination, and a nice blend of shape, it's a perfect blend of offense and defense. And the Mark III V is the first ever head designed for all field players. Lacrosse is the fastest growing sport in the world, and we hope that the Mark III V can grow with that sport. And our campaign name is the Universal Game. Capsule or really emphasizing on universality and diversity of the game. Because growing up, lacrosse was always a very East Coast prep school kind of sport, but now we have countries like Uganda and Jamaica and France and Belgium, and I could go on, but there are thousands, or I'm sorry, thousands of opportunities, but almost hundreds of nations playing. Starting with our influence, I believe the cream of the crop for me always has been Nike when it comes to sports, especially sports products. And I've always loved that they utilize their aura and their brand and the fact that they create this persona around them to their advantage. They use in this commercial specifically, the winning isn't for everybody commercial, a kind of a cocky vibe. Like, am I a bad person for having no compassion for my competitor? Am I a bad person for wanting to win all the time? Am I a bad person for wanting to be the best? So I think that I love that Nike uses their strength of their brand to create their own authentic vibe to their commercials. And I believe that it's something that we have learned a lot from in creating our own kind of vibe for this new commercial. Kind of on the different spectrum of influence is Adidas, specifically the Summer of Sport, which came out around the 2024 Olympics. Extremely similar to Nike in the sense that they bounce between subjects, very empowering imagery. But speaking of imagery, I got more imagery influence from the Adidas commercial in jostling between athletes and the uptick in music from when the imagery goes from black and white to color. So I got some great influence through Adidas, which leads us to our individual spot, which makes what makes the Mark III V different? What makes the Mark III V the Mark III V? And if you'll bear with me here, the opening scene is a rapid set of transitions shuffling between our four subjects. Our four subjects are Brennan O'Neill, who is the former number one overall pick and lacrosse superstar, who plays for the Denver Outlaws in the PLL. And then it goes to our character in Tokyo, Japan, playing in the streets, playing amongst the lights, followed by our character playing in the vast open fields and forests of Uganda, which is one of the strongest African countries that we see at the World Games, followed by the strongest island nation, Jamaica, playing in the beaches of Negril. So the song begins playing, Instrumental of Nokia by Drake is what I originally picked, but any popular upbeat rap song, I believe, would do the trick. Obviously, faintly in the beginning, so it does not overshadow the beginning dialogue. And the beginning dialogue is a game that preceded all of us and is one that has stood the test of time. A game created in the ancient past and manufactured for the future. A game that started with rocks and is now played with pearls. During this opening dialogue, our four characters are going to be introduced, as I said. Um, but the opening shots will be black and white, creating a little mystique and confusion about what the commercial is really about, who these people really are, because Brennan will probably be the only notable character involved, at least to start. It'll be more focused on the Mark III-V. It'll show more still shots of our characters cradling, passing, shooting. Um, at this point, the audio will pause. Everything will pause. We'll do a close up on Brennan, and then the audio will come back. Our imagery will switch to color, and then we will show the vast differences in our four characters' locations. So it's not as much of a secret anymore. We'll show Brennan playing inside of Mile High Stadium in Denver, Colorado. We'll show our Ugandan playing in the fields. We'll show our Japanese international playing in the streets of Tokyo, and then we'll show our Jamaican international playing on the beach. Um, and our final dialogue will be introducing the String King Mark III-V, the first ever positionless lacrosse head. Like the game of lacrosse, the Mark III-V knows no boundaries. Welcome to the future of lacrosse. Here's some references. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate the time.